I found out my best friend was planning to frame me for cheating on my husband and expose me at his birthday party. She said to her accomplice, "Once I show him these fake photos, she'll be out of the picture forever." Her friend agreed. Finally, someone's going to teach her a lesson about being too perfect. She added, "I've been waiting years to destroy her marriage and take everything she has." My husband's brother was in on it, saying, "She deserves to lose everything for being so smug." I didn't confront them. I just arrived early at the party and played the recording of their entire plan in front of all the guests. The room went silent as their voices echoed through the speakers. "Now she's sobbing. I was just jealous. Please don't press charges. I really love him and want him." You know that moment when your entire world just stops? When everything you thought you knew gets flipped upside down in the span of a single conversation? Well, let me tell you about the day I discovered my best friend of 8 years was planning to destroy my marriage with fake photos and lies. And honestly, what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was running late to pick up the cake for my husband Liam's surprise birthday party. The bakery was swamped, so I decided to swing by Chloe's place first to grab the decorations we'd stored there. Chloe had been my best friend since college, you know, the kind of friend who knows all your secrets, who's been there through everything. Or so I thought. I used my spare key like I always did, calling out as I walked in. No answer. Figured she was in the shower or something. But as I headed toward the living room, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. Chloe's voice, and was that Jake? Liam's brother Jake? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Have you ever had that gut feeling that made you freeze in place instead of announcing yourself? Something in their tone made me stop dead in my tracks behind the kitchen doorway. "The photos look completely real," Chloe was saying, and I could hear papers rustling. "Once I show Liam these at the party tonight, Mia will be out of the picture forever." My blood turned to ice. "Photos? What photos?" Jake's voice was filled with satisfaction. Finally, someone's going to teach her a lesson about being too perfect. I'm so tired of watching Liam worship the ground she walks on. Perfect? Me? I almost laughed if I wasn't so shocked. I worked 2 jobs to help pay our mortgage, came home exhausted most nights, and half the time forgot to put on makeup. Perfect was the last thing I felt. But Chloe wasn't done. I've been waiting years to destroy her marriage and take everything she has. Do you know how hard it's been pretending to be her supportive best friend while watching her live my dream life? Years. Years she'd been planning this. "She deserves to lose everything for being so smug," Jake added, and I heard him moving around. "The way she acts like she's better than everyone, with her little comments about making good choices and her perfect little life." Smug? When had I ever? And then it hit me. Last month, when Jake was complaining about his 3rd DUI, I'd suggested maybe he should consider getting help. When Chloe was dating that guy who kept cheating on her, I'd said she deserved better. Were those the comments they meant? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. Thank goodness for voice recording apps, right? Because what I was hearing needed to be documented. "The beauty of it is," Chloe continued, "these photos of Mia with that guy from her yoga class look so convincing. I spent weeks learning photo editing just for this. And I made sure to take pictures of her schedule, her routines, everything. The timestamps will match perfectly with when she said she was working late." Yoga class guy? I didn't even go to yoga. I went to the gym down the street, alone, with my headphones in because I hated small talk during workouts. "And you're sure Liam will believe it?" Jake asked. "Are you kidding? He's been so paranoid lately about her working late. I've been planting little seeds of doubt for months." Oh, Mia seemed really happy when she came back from work yesterday. Almost glowing. Little things like that. He's already suspicious. My heart shattered. Those late nights? I'd been working extra shifts to save up for Liam's dream vacation to Japan. It was supposed to be his birthday surprise next month. And Chloe knew that. She'd helped me research hotels. Plus, she went on, once he kicks her out, he'll need someone to comfort him. Someone who's always been there. Someone who really understands him. The pieces clicked into place. Chloe had been in love with my husband. My husband, who'd never shown her any interest beyond friendship. My husband, who talked about me constantly according to her own complaints to mutual friends. What about the party? Jake asked. You're really going to do this in front of everyone? Maximum impact, Chloe said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Public humiliation is the best kind. She'll be so shocked and embarrassed, she won't even be able to defend herself properly. And with all our friends there as witnesses, the story will spread fast. No chance for her to spin it. You know what's funny about betrayal? In the movies, people always gasp or cry or confront the person immediately. But me? I just stood there, recording, as my best friend detailed exactly how she planned to ruin my life in front of 30 of our closest friends and family members. They talked for another 10 minutes. About the fake hotel receipts she'd created. About how she'd been going through my purse to photograph my credit cards for authenticity. About how Jake had been feeding her information about Liam's insecurities and fears. When I finally heard them moving toward the living room, I slipped out the back door and sat in my car for 20 minutes, just shaking. 8 years of friendship. 8 years of shared secrets, girls' trips, late-night phone calls when life got hard. 8 years of me thinking I had a sister by choice. But here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just hurt. If you let it, it can make you stronger. And smarter. I drove home and looked at those fake photos she'd somehow gotten hold of. I had to admit, they were good. If I didn't know for absolute certain I'd never been anywhere near that hotel with that man, I might have believed them myself. The woman in the photos had my hair color, my build, even a similar profile. But it wasn't me. Liam was at work, setting up for his own surprise party later. Ironic, right? I called my cousin Dean, who happens to be a police officer, and sent him the recording. Not to press charges, not yet, but to get advice on how to handle this legally if things went south. Mia, he said after listening, this is conspiracy to commit fraud, defamation, and a few other things I can think of. You could absolutely press charges. I know, I told him. But first, I want to handle this my way. Do you ever have those moments where you surprise yourself? Where you discover you're capable of something you never knew was in you? Because what I did next, even I didn't see coming. I went to the party venue early. Like 2 hours early. The place was empty except for the catering staff setting up. I explained to the manager that I needed to test the sound system for a special birthday video, and would it be possible to connect my phone to the speakers? He was happy to help the birthday boy's wife set up a surprise. Then I waited. And waited. Watching our friends and family arrive, laughing and chatting, completely unaware that they were about to witness something that would change everything. Liam's parents came in, carrying the gift they'd spent months picking out. Our college friends, some of whom had driven hours to be there. Liam's co-workers, people I'd shared countless conversations with at company parties. Chloe arrived right on time, looking stunning in the red dress she'd bought specially for tonight. She hugged me like always, kissed my cheek, told me how excited she was for Liam's surprise. The performance was flawless. You seem nervous, she said, studying my face. Everything okay? Just want everything to be perfect for him, I replied. And it was true, in a way. Jake showed up 20 minutes later, and I watched him and Chloe exchange a look across the room. The look of conspirators. The look of people who thought they held all the cards. When Liam arrived, the whole room erupted in surprise. He was genuinely shocked, laughing and hugging everyone. My heart broke a little watching him, knowing what was supposed to happen tonight. Knowing how they'd planned to humiliate both of us in front of all these people we cared about. The party went on normally for about an hour. Liam opened presents, we had dinner, everyone was having a great time. I kept watching Chloe, waiting for her to make her move. She kept checking her phone, probably psyching herself up. Finally, she approached the makeshift DJ setup where the manager had shown me the speaker controls earlier. Hey everyone. She called out, tapping the microphone. Can I get your attention for just a minute? The room quieted down. Liam looked over with a smile, probably thinking this was another surprise he didn't know about. I know this is Liam's birthday party, Chloe continued, but I have something really important that everyone needs to see. Especially Liam. She looked right at me when she said it. The look of someone who thought they were about to destroy my world. That's when I walked over to the sound system, smiled at her, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, actually, Chloe, I have something I think everyone should hear first. And I pressed play. Her own voice filled the room, Once I show Liam these fake photos, Mia will be out of the picture forever. Have you ever seen 30 people go completely silent at the same time? It's eerie. Like someone hit a mute button on the entire world. Chloe's face went white. Like, legitimately white. She looked at the speakers, then at me, then back at the speakers as her own voice continued. I've been waiting years to destroy her marriage and take everything she has. Jake started moving toward the exit, but Dean, my cousin who'd arrived during dinner, was already standing by the door. Coincidence? I think not. The recording played on. Every word. Every cruel detail. Every admission of fraud and deception. 30 people stood frozen, listening to two people they trusted plot to destroy a marriage with lies. When it got to the part where Jake said, "She deserves to lose everything for being so smug," I watched Liam's face change. His brother. His own brother, who he'd supported through addiction, through job losses, through every crisis for years. The recording ended, and the silence stretched on for what felt like forever. Then Liam's mother started crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs, just quiet tears running down her face as she stared at Jake. 8 years, I said into the microphone, looking directly at Chloe. 8 years of friendship. 8 years of me trusting you with my marriage, my secrets, my life. And you spent how long planning to destroy it all with fake photos and lies? That's when Chloe broke. She started sobbing, not the pretty kind of crying you see in movies, but the ugly, desperate kind. I was just jealous. She screamed. You have everything. The perfect husband, the perfect life, everyone loves you. It's not fair. So you decided to frame me for cheating? I didn't mean. I wasn't really going to. But even she knew how ridiculous that sounded with her own voice still echoing in our heads. Liam finally moved. He walked over to Jake, who was trying to blend into the wall by the door. My brother, he said quietly. My own brother. Liam, man, I can explain. Explain what? Explain how you've been helping someone fake evidence to destroy my marriage? Explain how you think my wife is smug for suggesting you get help with your drinking? The room was riveted. You know how sometimes at parties people break off into little groups and conversations? Not tonight. Tonight, everyone was focused on the drama unfolding in front of them like it was a live theater performance. Chloe was still crying, but now she was trying a different approach. She stumbled over to Liam, mascara running down her cheeks. I really love him. She announced to the room. I've loved him since college. I know that's wrong, but I can't help it. And that's when Liam looked at her with the most disgusted expression I'd ever seen on his face. You love me? You thought destroying my wife, the person I love most in the world, was somehow going to make me love you back? She doesn't deserve you. And you do? After planning to traumatize both of us with fake evidence in front of our family and friends? Chloe looked around the room desperately, like she was hoping someone would support her. But 30 pairs of eyes just stared back at her with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to anger. Please don't press charges. She begged, turning to me. I'll do anything. I'll leave town, I'll never contact any of you again, just please don't ruin my life. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Don't ruin her life? You mean like you were about to ruin mine? I asked. She didn't have an answer for that. Jake tried to leave again, but Dean stepped in front of him. I don't think so. We need to have a conversation about conspiracy and fraud. It was her idea. Jake protested, pointing at Chloe. I was just supporting a friend. A friend who was planning to destroy your brother's marriage with fake evidence? Liam's been happy with her for too long. Someone needed to knock him down a peg. The room actually gasped at that. His own brother's happiness was apparently too much for Jake to handle. That's when Liam's dad spoke up. He'd been quiet the whole time, just standing there with his arm around his crying wife. Jake, he said, his voice heavy with disappointment, you're not welcome in our family anymore. Dad, you can't. I can and I am. What you tried to do tonight. That's not just betrayal. That's evil. Chloe made one last desperate attempt. She got down on her knees, actually on her knees, in front of Liam. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know it was wrong, but I love you so much it made me crazy. Just give me a chance to prove I can be better for you than she is. You know what Liam did? He looked down at her for a long moment, then walked over to me, took my hand, and said to the entire room, "My wife is the strongest, most gracious person I know. The fact that she handled this with dignity instead of destroying you the way you tried to destroy her just proves how much better she is than either of you deserve." Then he looked at Chloe, still on her knees. "Get up. You're embarrassing yourself. And get out of our lives." But we weren't done yet. Because here's the thing about revenge, sometimes life has its own plans. My cousin Dean had been recording everything on his phone from the moment the audio started playing. For evidence, he explained later. But it also meant we had Chloe's full confession, Jake's admission of conspiracy, and their complete breakdown in front of witnesses. As people started to leave, because really, what do you do after witnessing something like that? Several of them stopped to talk to me. Liam's co-workers promised they'd spread the word about what really happened, so there'd be no rumors or gossip. Our college friends were furious on my behalf and wanted to know how they could help. But the best part? The part I definitely didn't see coming? Chloe's ex-boyfriend Ryan was at the party. Remember him? The one she'd been complaining about, the one I'd said she deserved better than? Turns out he'd been invited by mutual friends, and he'd been trying to win her back for months. After witnessing her complete meltdown and hearing about her year-long deception plan, he walked up to her as she was finally getting off the floor. "Chloe," he said, "I came here tonight to ask you to marry me." She looked up with hope in her eyes for the first time all evening. "But after seeing who you really are?" He shook his head. "I dodged a bullet. Thank you for showing me your true colors before I made the biggest mistake of my life." And he walked away. That's when she really lost it. Like, security had to escort her out, lost it. Screaming about how everyone was against her, how none of this was fair, how she was the real victim because she'd been in love and people do crazy things for love. Jake left with her, probably because he didn't have anywhere else to go after his own family disowned him. The party ended early, obviously. But as people were leaving, something beautiful happened. Instead of treating Liam and me like we were the center of some dramatic scandal, everyone rallied around us. His parents stayed to help clean up and kept apologizing for Jake's behavior. Our friends made plans to take us out for a do-over birthday celebration the next weekend. Later that night, after everyone was gone and Liam and I were finally alone, he held me while I cried. Not because I was sad, well, not entirely, but because the relief was overwhelming. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "I should have seen what they were doing. I should have protected you." "How could you have known?" "They were planning this for months, maybe years." Those seeds of doubt Chloe mentioned. I hate that I let her get in my head at all. But you didn't believe her completely. If you had, you wouldn't have been so shocked by the recording. We talked until dawn. About trust, about friendship, about how people can hide their true selves for so long. About how grateful we were that I discovered their plan before they could execute it. The legal stuff took a few weeks to sort out. Dean helped me file charges for conspiracy, attempted fraud, and defamation. Chloe's lawyer tried to argue it was all talk and no actual crime had been committed, but creating fake photos with intent to use them to destroy a marriage? That's illegal in several different ways. Jake got charged too, for his role in the conspiracy. The fact that it was recorded in their own voices made it pretty cut and dried. Chloe ended up pleading guilty to avoid jail time. She had to pay fines, do community service, and stay away from both Liam and me for 5 years. She also had to write a public apology that her lawyer posted on her social media, explaining what she'd done and that all her claims about me were lies. Jake's consequences were more severe because he had prior convictions. He did end up spending a few months in jail, and his parents refused to bail him out or support him through it. But you know what the best revenge was? 6 months later, when Liam and I were in Japan, on the trip I'd been secretly saving for, we got a message from our friend Ava. She'd run into Chloe at a coffee shop, and apparently Chloe was working retail after losing her previous job when her employer found out about the criminal charges. She'd gained weight, looked tired, and was apparently still single and bitter. "She asked about you guys," Ava texted, "and when I showed her your vacation photos, she just walked away without saying anything." Meanwhile, Liam and I were stronger than ever. The whole experience had forced us to communicate more openly, to address the little insecurities that Chloe had been exploiting, and to really appreciate what we had together. We made new friends. Better friends. The kind who would never spend years plotting to destroy our happiness out of jealousy. And that yoga class guy from the fake photos? Turns out he was a stock photo model. Chloe had literally purchased photos online and photoshopped my face onto someone else's body. The lengths she went to for her revenge plot were honestly impressive, if you ignored how completely psychotic they were. 2 years later, we're doing great. Liam got a promotion at work. I started my own business. We bought a house with a big backyard for the dog we adopted. We're talking about kids. And Chloe? Last I heard, she moved to another state and was working at a call center. No idea what happened to Jake, and honestly, we don't care. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't overheard their conversation that day. If I'd walked into that party completely unsuspecting, and they'd gone through with their plan. Would people have believed the fake evidence? Would my marriage have survived? I think it would have, eventually. Because real love doesn't crumble that easily, and anyone who knew me well would have realized the photos were fake. But it would have been traumatic and messy and painful in ways I can't even imagine. Instead, their betrayal backfired spectacularly. They exposed themselves as the small, jealous, petty people they really were, in front of everyone who mattered to us. They lost their families, their friends, their reputations, and their freedom. And we ended up with a stronger marriage and a crystal clear understanding of who really cared about us. You know what they say about justice? Sometimes it doesn't wait. Sometimes it shows up to the party right on time, with perfect timing and a voice recording that changes everything. The funny thing is, I never did get that birthday cake I was supposed to pick up. We were all too shocked to eat dessert that night. But Liam says it was still the most memorable birthday party he's ever had. And honestly? Watching two people who thought they were so clever get completely destroyed by their own words in front of 30 witnesses? That was sweeter than any cake could have been. So here's to the people who think they can destroy others without consequences. Here's to fake friends and family members who choose jealousy over love. And here's to the beautiful, perfect, absolutely devastating revenge that sometimes serves itself. Trust me when I say, some betrayals end up being the best thing that ever happened to you. Because they show you exactly who people really are, and sometimes that's the most valuable gift of all. But this story doesn't end there. Because life has a funny way of adding extra chapters when you think you're done. 3 months after the party, I was at the grocery store when I bumped into someone I hadn't seen in years. Vera Cross, another college friend who'd moved away right after graduation. She was back in town visiting her parents and had heard about what happened through the mutual friend grapevine. Mia, she said, giving me a huge hug. I heard about the whole Chloe situation. I can't believe it. We grabbed coffee and she told me something that made my blood run cold all over again. You know, Vera said, stirring her latte, Chloe did something similar in college. Remember that girl Nora from our dorm? The one who was dating that guy Miles from the football team? I remembered Nora. Sweet girl, really shy, completely head over heels for Miles. They'd been together for 2 years when suddenly everything fell apart during senior year. What happened with them? I asked, though I was starting to get a sick feeling in my stomach. Chloe spread rumors that Nora was cheating. Said she saw her with some guy from her study group, making out in the library. Nora denied it. Miles didn't believe her. Huge traumatic breakup right before graduation. And was she? Cheating, I mean? Vera shook her head. The guy she was supposedly with? He was her gay study partner helping her with statistics. But by the time anyone figured that out, Miles had already transferred schools and Nora had a complete breakdown. She never finished her degree. My heart sank. Why didn't anyone tell Miles the truth? Chloe was very convincing. And you know how college drama is, by the time people realize what really happened, everyone's moved on to the next crisis. So this wasn't Chloe's first time destroying someone's relationship. It was a pattern. And suddenly I realized something else. Vera. Do you remember if Chloe had a thing for Miles? She paused with her coffee halfway to her lips. Oh my. Yes. She was always talking about how cute he was, how Nora didn't appreciate him. But we all just thought it was harmless girl talk. I felt sick. What happened to Nora? Last I heard, she was still struggling. Never really recovered from the whole thing. Changed her major 3 times, ended up dropping out, moved back in with her parents. The whole situation just broke her. That night, I told Liam what Vera had shared. We both sat there in stunned silence, realizing that Chloe had done this before. Had practiced on some poor girl in college before setting her sights on me. "We have to find Nora," I said. "Why?" "It was years ago." "Because she deserves to know the truth. And because if Chloe did this to her and got away with it, and then tried to do it to me, who else has she hurt?" It took some detective work, but we found Nora living about 6 hours away, working part-time at a bookstore and still living with her parents at 32. When I called her, she was suspicious at first. "Why are you asking about Miles? That was years ago." I explained what had happened at Liam's party, about the recording, about learning that Chloe had done something similar in college. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "She destroyed my life," Nora finally whispered. "I loved him so much, and everyone thought I was a cheater. I never understood why people believed her over me. Because she was convincing. And she had practice." We arranged to meet the following weekend. Nora drove up with her sister Iris, who'd been furious about the college situation for years but never knew exactly what had happened. Seeing Nora was heartbreaking. She was still pretty, but there was a sadness in her eyes that hadn't been there in college. A defeated quality that spoke of years of self-doubt and broken confidence. "I never got over it," she admitted as we sat in my living room. "Not just losing Miles, but having everyone think I was capable of that kind of betrayal. It changed how I saw myself." "What if I told you we could prove what really happened?" Her eyes widened. "How?" "I've been thinking about this all week. Chloe kept detailed records of her plan to frame me. Photos, timelines, even practice runs of her story. If she did the same thing to you, she'd have kept records of that too," Iris finished, her eyes lighting up with understanding. We called my cousin Dean, explained the situation, and asked if there was any way to legally investigate whether Chloe had documents from the college incident. "If she kept records like she did for your case, and if we can prove a pattern of behavior, that could actually help strengthen the charges against her," Dean said. "Let me make some calls." It turned out that Chloe's plea deal included turning over all devices and documents related to her activities. When investigators went through her old files, they found something incredible. A folder labeled college projects that contained printed emails, photographs, and what looked like a detailed plan for breaking up Nora and Miles. She documented everything. Screenshots of conversations, notes about Miles' schedule, even practice conversations where she rehearsed what she was going to tell people. The smoking gun was a journal entry dated 3 weeks before the breakup. "Miles is too good for that mousy little nobody. Once I get rid of her, he'll see what he's been missing. Operation Nora needs to start Monday." Operation Nora? She'd literally given it a code name. When Dean showed us the files, I wanted to cry. This woman had been calculating and cruel for over a decade, destroying lives like it was a hobby. "There's more," Dean added grimly. "We found files on 3 other women. Looks like she's done this before." 3 others? 5 total, including Nora and me. 5 women whose lives Chloe had tried to destroy out of jealousy and obsession. The legal system moved slowly, but eventually, Chloe's plea deal was revoked based on the new evidence of a pattern of criminal behavior. She ended up serving actual jail time, 18 months, for what the prosecutor called a systematic campaign of harassment and fraud spanning over 10 years. But the real victory was what happened with Nora. When we finally tracked down Miles, he was living in Colorado, married with 2 kids, and showed him the evidence of what Chloe had done. He was devastated. "I loved her," he said over video chat, his voice breaking. "I really, truly loved her, and I threw it all away because I believed a lie." He reached out to Nora immediately, apologizing for not trusting her, for not investigating more thoroughly, for letting Chloe's poison destroy what they had. Now here's where the story gets really good. Have you ever seen 2 people get a second chance at something beautiful that was stolen from them? Nora and Miles started talking again. Just as friends at first, catching up on the decade they'd lost. But you know how these stories go when they're meant to be. 6 months later, Miles got a job transfer that brought him back to our area. A year after that, he and Nora were engaged. 2 years later, they had the wedding they should have had 10 years ago. I was honored to be Nora's maid of honor. At the reception, she gave a speech that had everyone in tears. They say that some people come into your life as blessings, and others come as lessons, she said, looking radiant in her wedding dress. Chloe came as a lesson about how cruel people can be when they're driven by jealousy. But Mia came as a blessing, showing me that sometimes the truth finds a way to surface, even years later. She looked over at me. If you hadn't been brave enough to record that conversation, if you hadn't cared enough to find me and tell me what really happened, I'd still be living with the shame of something I never did. Thank you for giving me my life back. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. But wait, because there's more. Remember those other 3 women Chloe had targeted? We found them too. Zoe, who'd lost a job opportunity when Chloe spread rumors about her stealing from the company. Turned out Chloe had wanted that same position. Ava, whose engagement had been ruined when Chloe convinced her fiancé's family that she was gold digging. Chloe had been in love with a fiancé since high school. And Ruby, whose small business had nearly failed when Chloe started fake online reviews claiming terrible service and overcharging. Ruby's success had made Chloe jealous because they'd started their businesses around the same time. All of them had suffered for years, never understanding why these terrible things had happened to them. All of them had blamed themselves, wondered what they'd done wrong, carried shame and self-doubt that wasn't theirs to carry. When the evidence came out, when they learned that one person's jealousy and manipulation had derailed their lives, it was like watching people wake up from a nightmare. Zoe got a lawyer and sued her former company for wrongful termination. She won, and used the settlement to start her own consulting firm. Ava and her ex-fiancé reconciled and got married in a beautiful ceremony. His family, mortified by how they treated her based on lies, went overboard trying to make amends. Ruby's business exploded with positive attention when the story of what happened went viral on social media. People were so outraged by what Chloe had done that they rallied around Ruby's company, leaving real positive reviews and becoming loyal customers. And all of us, all 5 of Chloe's victims, became friends. We started meeting for dinner once a month, calling ourselves the Survivors Club. It sounds dramatic, but that's what we were. We'd all survived a predator who'd tried to destroy us out of pure spite. The media picked up the story eventually. Local Woman's decade-long campaign of lies exposed ran in newspapers across 3 states. Chloe's mugshot was everywhere, along with details of how she'd systematically targeted women she was jealous of. But here's what I found most satisfying about the whole thing. Do you remember how Chloe had always complained that I had the perfect life? Well, by the time all was said and done, my life actually did become pretty perfect. Liam and I renewed our vows on our 10th anniversary, surrounded by all our real friends and family. The people who'd stood by us, who'd supported us through the whole ordeal. I started a nonprofit organization called Truth Tellers to help people who'd been victims of deliberate defamation and character assassination. We provide legal resources, emotional support, and investigative services to help people clear their names. Nora became my business partner after she finished the degree she'd abandoned. Turns out she was brilliant at organizing and research, probably because she understood better than anyone what it felt like to be falsely accused. The other women in our group all became advocates in their own ways. Zoe started speaking at colleges about toxic friendship warning signs. Ava wrote a blog about rebuilding trust after betrayal. Ruby created a workshop series for small business owners about dealing with fake reviews and malicious competition. We turned our trauma into triumph, our victimhood into victory. And Chloe? After she got out of jail, she violated her restraining order by trying to contact Liam on social media. Back to jail she went, this time for 2 years. When she finally got out the second time, she'd apparently learned her lesson. She moved across the country, changed her name, and as far as we know, hasn't contacted any of us since. Jake, meanwhile, never recovered from being disowned by his family. Last we heard, he was still struggling with addiction and jumping from job to job. Sometimes the consequences of betrayal follow you forever. But the most beautiful part of this whole story? The part that makes me believe in justice and the power of truth? 5 years after that disastrous birthday party, Liam and I were at a restaurant celebrating our anniversary when we ran into Ryan, Chloe's ex-boyfriend who'd almost proposed to her that night. He was with a lovely woman named Lila, and they were clearly happy together. Mia. Liam. Ryan called out, waving us over to their table. I want you to meet my fiancé, Lila. As we chatted, Ryan pulled me aside for a moment. I never got to properly thank you, he said quietly. Thank me for what? For saving me from making the biggest mistake of my life. If I hadn't seen Chloe's true nature that night at the party, I would have married her. Can you imagine what my life would have been like? I looked over at Lila, who was laughing at something Liam had said, her eyes bright with genuine happiness and kindness. You found your real person, I told him. We both did. You showed me what real love looks like, the way you and Liam supported each other through that whole mess, instead of letting it tear you apart. That's when I knew what I wanted to find. After they left, Liam and I sat there marveling at how differently things had turned out than anyone could have predicted. Do you ever wonder what Chloe thought would happen after she showed everyone those fake photos? Liam asked. You mean did she have a whole fantasy about you falling into her arms immediately after kicking me out? Exactly. Even if her plan had worked, did she really think I'd be so grateful to her for exposing you that I'd instantly want to date her? I thought about it. I think she believed her own lies. She'd convinced herself that you were already unhappy with me, that you were just staying out of obligation or something. In her mind, she was doing you a favor. That's the scary part. She really believed she was the hero of the story. And that's when it hit me, the most important lesson from this whole experience. Have you ever noticed how people can convince themselves that their worst impulses are actually noble? That their jealousy is justified, their cruelty is necessary, their lies are kindness? Chloe had spent years telling herself that she deserved my life more than I did. That I was somehow fake or unworthy. That destroying my marriage would be doing everyone a favor. She'd created an entire narrative where she was the wrong party, the victim, the one who deserved happiness more than anyone else. But here's the thing about delusion, reality has a way of crashing through eventually. And when it does, it's devastating. 6 months later, we got news that put the final punctuation mark on this whole story. Nora called me, practically vibrating with excitement. Turn on Channel 7 News right now. I flipped on the TV just in time to see a familiar face on the screen. Chloe, looking haggard and defeated, being led out of a courthouse in handcuffs. Local woman arrested for identity theft and fraud, the news anchor was saying. Chloe West, who was previously convicted of harassment and defamation, was caught using stolen credit card information to make purchases totaling over $15,000. The reporter went on to explain that Chloe had been working at a retail store and using her access to customer information to steal identities. She'd been caught when one of the victims noticed fraudulent charges and the investigation led back to her. This represents a pattern of deceptive behavior, the prosecutor said in a brief interview. Ms. West has shown herself to be someone who believes she's entitled to take what belongs to others, whether that's their reputation, their relationships, or their financial security. The news story mentioned her previous convictions, including a bizarre scheme to frame an innocent woman for adultery using fabricated evidence. That night, all 5 of us from the Survivors Club had an emergency video call to process what we'd just seen. I almost feel sorry for her, Ruby said, though she didn't sound like she meant it. I don't, Zoe replied firmly. She had every opportunity to learn from her mistakes, to get help, to become a better person. Instead, she just kept victimizing people. Some people never change, Ava added. They just get better at hiding what they are, or they get sloppy and get caught. Nora, who had probably suffered the most from Chloe's manipulations, was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. I think I'm glad it happened this way. If she'd just disappeared and never gotten caught again, I would have always wondered if she was out there hurting other people. At least now I know she can't. And that was it. The final chapter in Chloe's story, at least as far as we were concerned. She went to prison for 3 years for the identity theft, and by the time she got out, we'd all moved on with our lives so completely that her fate became irrelevant. But our stories? Our stories were just beginning. 7 years after that birthday party disaster, here's where we all ended up. Nora and Miles had 2 beautiful kids and started a foundation that provides scholarships to students who've had to overcome false accusations or character assassination. They wanted to help people rebuild their lives the way they've been able to rebuild theirs. Zoe's consulting firm grew into a multi-million-dollar company. She hired Ruby as her marketing director, and together they created an unstoppable team. Both of them became advocates for women in business, speaking about overcoming sabotage and toxic competition. Ava wrote a best-selling book about her experience called The Truth Will Set You Free, but first it will make you mad. The book helped thousands of people recognize manipulation and gaslighting in their own relationships. Liam and I had our first baby, a daughter we named Hope. Because that's what the whole experience had taught us, that even in the darkest moments, when betrayal feels overwhelming and justice seems impossible, hope can survive. We still meet once a month, our little survivors club, though now we bring our kids and partners and the conversations are more about future dreams than past trauma. We've become a chosen family, bonded by shared experience but sustained by genuine love and support. And you know what the most beautiful irony is? Chloe had been jealous of the life she thought I had, the perfect marriage, the perfect friends, the perfect everything. But because of her betrayal, because of what she put us all through, I actually did end up with something pretty close to perfect. A marriage that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. Friends who had proven their loyalty beyond any doubt. A career helping other people find justice and healing. A daughter who would grow up knowing the difference between real love and manipulation. Chloe had tried to take everything from me, and instead, she'd given me everything I never knew I wanted. The last time I heard anything about her was 2 years ago. One of our mutual acquaintances mentioned seeing her at a bus stop, looking much older than her years, talking to herself. Whether it was mental illness, substance abuse, or just the weight of all her choices catching up with her, I don't know. And honestly, I didn't want to know. Some people earn their redemption stories. Others earn their cautionary tales. But here's what I want you to take away from all this, if you've stuck with me through this whole wild ride. Have you ever noticed how the people who complain most about others having perfect lives are usually the ones creating the most chaos and drama? Chloe spent years convinced that everyone else had it better, that life was unfair, that she deserved what other people had worked for. She never once stopped to ask herself why her relationships kept failing, why her schemes kept backfiring, why she was so unhappy despite having every opportunity to build a good life. Instead, she chose to blame everyone else. To tear down instead of build up. To destroy instead of create. And in the end, that choice destroyed her more completely than she'd ever managed to destroy anyone else. The truth is, there's no such thing as a perfect life. Everyone has struggles, everyone has insecurities, everyone has moments where they wonder if they're doing anything right. The difference is in how you handle those moments. You can let them make you bitter and destructive, like Chloe did. Or you can let them make you stronger and more compassionate, like Nora did. Like all of us did. You can spend your energy tearing others down, or you can spend it building yourself up. You can choose to see other people's happiness as a threat to your own, or you can choose to see it as proof that happiness is possible. You can let jealousy poison your heart, or you can let it motivate you to work harder for what you want. The choice is always yours. And sometimes, when you choose the harder path, the path of truth and integrity and real love, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply living so well, loving so fully, and growing so much that the person who tried to destroy you becomes completely irrelevant to your happiness. That's the revenge I recommend. The kind where you win not by making someone else lose, but by refusing to let their darkness dim your light. The kind where you look back years later and realize that their betrayal was actually the best thing that ever happened to you, because it showed you who you really are, who really matters, and what you're truly capable of. And that, my friends, is a story worth telling.